Good evening, everyone, and welcome to American Weed, The Realm Radio. I'm Josh Stanley, I'm your host, and I'm here with my mustached younger brother, Jesse Stanley, your co-host.
Good evening.
Jesse, you been hanging out with any kiddie pools recently with that mustache?
No, absolutely. I've been kicked out of most of them in Denver, proper Denver.
And thank God. All right, guys, I tell you what, we have a very, very exciting show for you tonight, but it's also a very, very, it's going to be tight schedule-wise because we have so much content for you. Tonight we have our special guest. We have Matt Cook joining us. Matt Cook was the former director of the Colorado Department of Revenue Medical Marijuana Enforcement Division. The very first one, the architect of the regulatory scheme, the regulatory medical marijuana scheme in Colorado as we know it. We're going to have a lot of fun with him. He's going to talk to us about the state of affairs on the regulatory scheme in Colorado, where it stands, where it's headed, and his involvement with that. And then also we're going to talk to him about other states that he's been consulting with and working on modeling or getting better what Colorado's regulatory scheme has represented. And then tonight we're going to do things just a little bit different. We have Science Corner typically from 7:30 to 7:45. We're going to extend that 30 minutes tonight. We've got some incredible scientists here. We have Steve Baugh joining us. We've got Chris Stubbs. We've got Jennifer Murray all from Cann Labs, and we have so many questions. We're so honored to get so many questions from a new group out there, a new CBD group. And Jesse, are you familiar with this new CBD group that's going on?
I'm not, actually. You were talking about it earlier today.
Yeah. This new CBD group was put together by an amazing woman named Rebecca Brown from Michigan, and it really started with a lot of these Dravet syndrome patients that have started to gain relief throughout the United States from cannabidiol, which is CBD. Okay, so for the listeners that are just joining in. And we had so many questions that we decided to extend Science Corner so that we can answer all of these questions. We want to make sure and take the time to answer these because they're very important. And if you didn't see last week's show, please go onto the website and take an hour to take a look at it. And if you don't want to listen to my rants and raves for that hour, that's fine. Go on there and watch the interview with Paige Figge, one of our most amazing friends, courageous mom of a Dravet child here, little Charlotte, here in Colorado, and that'll kind of catch you up on where we are in talking about CBD. I want to tell you just a little bit first for all you new listeners. I want to tell you about why we call this The Realm, American Weed, The Realm. The Realm refers to a nonprofit organization that my brothers and I put together called The Realm of Caring. The Realm of Caring is a 501c3 nonprofit that seeks to assist seriously ill patients, whether it be cancer, Dravet syndrome, any type of epilepsy, MS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, arthritis, on down the list, in gaining access to the special concentrated oil that my brothers and I create in our manufactured infused product facility. And we do this, it's been our dream to get this off the ground for about 4 years now, because anytime somebody is diagnosed with a debilitating condition such as, let's say, cancer, I don't care in this country if you have the Cadillac of health insurance, you're going to be broke. I mean, it's going to cost you through the nose to get your treatment, which is very unfortunate. Medical marijuana, cannabis concentrated oil that we provide, which we call Realm Oil, that's not cheap either. And so we want to be able to provide these patients this free of charge, and we can do that through the Realm, through everybody volunteering and participating through this. We also have observational research studies done through the amazing Dr. Shackelford, who will be joining us next week. And he's able to come in and track the progress of these patients through this oil, whether it be Dravet syndrome for young Charlotte and Aiden, or whether it be through cancer, MS, or any number of debilitating conditions, so that we can finally bring out published results. Okay, it's one thing to talk about how medical marijuana works, and then people see pop culture through bongs and TV shows like American Weed and all of these things. It's quite another to show the true medicinal aspect of this amazing medicine. So we're going to go through my rants and raves, as we always have to do. And one thing that really came up this week that surprised me, my brothers and I, we all grew up in Oklahoma. And I got a lot of emails from these different support groups for medical marijuana in Oklahoma. And I got to tell you, these are brave souls who are seeking to bring this plant to light. And I have to say, in possibly the darkest corners of our lower 48. Guys, I want to tell you, we're thinking about you, we love you, and we're here for you. It starts with a seed, it becomes a tree. No state is out of bounds, guys. Logic is logic, healing is healing, period. We too often, we tend to forget that the majority of the United States does not have access to this type of treatment option. And a lot of these people are left in the dark. So we can't forget for a second that we're in this fight together. And that's really what this radio broadcast, that's what the realm of caring is focused on. We're focused on uniting people from all over the country, if not the world, to create a system of education as well as proof of what this plant is capable of providing. Folks, I'm here to tell you the iceberg has not even hit the surface to what we can accomplish and heal through this amazing plant. So we're here to create a community of education and sound logic where all can join, be enlightened, and educated. We're in this together, and we certainly love you all truly. And you have to remember, okay, sometimes we get so frustrated with the way that things are in our legislative systems, and I need you to remember, ignorance is just the absence of understanding. It's nothing to fight against. It's an opportunity to educate. And, you know, I have to tell you, when we go against or we go perpendicular to misunderstanding or we activate against misunderstanding, we're only banging our heads against walls. We create enemies and we broaden the gap between ignorance and misinformation. But we seek to educate instead of activate. And when you do that, you parallel misunderstanding, and soon, I promise, those lines cross. That's when the lights turn on. I know it's frustrating. I know you want to scream at elected officials, law enforcement, and the like, but please, please refrain. That's not what we're here to do. The proof is here, and remember, it only takes one lighthouse to bring in 1,000 ships. So with that, let's begin here. I want to get into some of this state of affairs in Oklahoma, some things that are really, really shocking to me. The Oklahoma Senate in April of this year, a bill went effective, House bill, I believe it's 1798. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
1798 went into effect, and it sailed through the Senate with little debate, and it passed on a vote of 44-2. The House also approved the measure by a large margin, passing a vote of 75-18. Really not good. What this does is creates a felony of converting marijuana into hash. The first conviction garners a $50,000 fine and a prison sentence of 2 years.
Josh, I think you need to repeat that one more time. I think people probably didn't hear that correctly.
Yeah. In Oklahoma, converting marijuana to hash now gives you a mandatory minimum of 2 years and up to a $50,000 fine. Wow. Second or subsequent convictions, they would net double penalties on this.
Wow.
Yeah. So in one state, I mean, we're talking about seriously invisible lines here. So in one state, you can take this medicine and possibly be free of cancer or quell your epileptic seizures. In the other state, you spend life in prison. Something is inherently wrong about this. So you think about the numbers on this. Oklahoma legislative analysts have said that the bill would cost the state $56 a day or more than $20,000 a year for just one, okay? Just one person that's in prison. And at that rate, if Oklahoma imprisoned 5 hash makers for 10 years each, the bill to the taxpayers would be $1 million. $1 million. $1 million. It's unthinkable. Which really leads me into my next rant here, and this is something that we hear all the time from people. Well, if it wasn't for the insurance companies, if it wasn't for the pharmaceutical companies, that this amazing plant and the benefits of this, which not one, and I'm going to say this on every show, not one single person has ever overdosed or died from, and has only gotten better. Okay, with this plant. Living in this type of propaganda, what you have to understand is we have a third party in charge here, okay? And folks, I'm giving you facts. This is privatized prisons, and I'm going to read a few facts here for you, okay? In 2010, private prisons held 128,000 of the 1.6 million state and federal prisoners in the United States. This represents 8% of the total population for the period of 1999 to 2010. The number of individuals held in private prisons grew by 80% compared to 18% for the overall prison population. Both federal and state governments increasingly relied on privatization. The federal prison system's commitment to privatization grew much more dramatically. The number of federal prisoners held in private prisons rose from 3,828 to 33,830. That's an increase, folks, of 784%, while the number of state prisoners incarcerated privately grew by only 40%, 67,000 to 94,000. Today, 30 states maintain some level of privatization in their prisons. There are 7 states that house more than a quarter of the prison populations privately.
It's amazing, actually, folks, what Josh is saying. He's shouting out some statistics. America has, what, 25% of the world's
No. America has 75% of the world's nonviolent offenders.
But they imprison 25% around the world of the prisoners in the world,
of the entire prisoner population.
5% of the world's population. Actually, we imprison more people than China does, and they have 5 times the population.
That's correct. That's correct. And so, what all this means, and all of these facts and figures, is that when we're talking privatized prisons, guys, I'm not talking conspiracy theory here. Okay, I'm talking that these prisons are traded on the public market. What this is, that we're participating in legalized slavery. These privatized prisons will work out labor for nonviolent offenders. Okay, you don't make money on violent offenders, but nonviolent offenders, which we hold 75% of the world's population, at $8 to $14 an hour, depending on your region. The nonviolent inmate then sees at best 30 cents an hour for their release stipends. Do the math on this. It's past time that this stops. And something else I'm going to tell you here is that the United States is the only country, okay? We're I think 42nd rated in healthcare, but we're the only country that's currently building more prisons than hospitals. Guys, this is true evidence of a very, very sick society.
Wow. It's amazing. You know, Americans out there, if you're listening, it's sad because we are profiting off of this and we don't even know it. Companies like Compaq, HP, in fact, I think all of the war supplies are made by federal prisoners. And not to mention, you know, your Dell computer or
Halliburton.
Many other things, many other things that you use, the inmates make, and that basically gives you, you know, your computer for a little less price, but it also drives the profits up for these big companies.
Yeah, that's correct. And you know, most people, and like I said, everybody wants to blame this on pharmaceutical companies, which obviously is a big special interest and a big hurdle to pass. A lot of people want to blame this on insurance companies. Big hurdle to pass as well. But most people are not aware of these statistics when it comes to privatized prisons and what I like to call legalized slavery. And it's time that people are aware of this. Because, guys, no other nation than the United States does this. No other nation than the United States actually approves things like pink slime in your meat. So, you know, in closing on this rant, what I would encourage people to do, and once we got this out on our blog site, everybody was in, you know, uproar. Oh no, this is a conspiracy. This is that. And I said, well, please look it up for yourself. And they did so, and they got back to us, and everybody had been appalled. Well, what can we do? The answer is very, very, very simple. You can vote your conscience. We don't live in a two-party system. We live in a two-party system because CNN or Fox tells you so, and it tells the United States people, us, the population, what to think. And so the biggest trick they play on you is to get you believing in one or two of these particular channels, and then you get into a fight. And guys, I'm here to tell you, the puppet may change in face and name every 4 years, but the marionette stays the same. If you want freedom, if you want to change these lazy, ridiculous absolute capitalistic pig laws, then you vote for change, because you can vote one way or another and think that you're making a change, and we still continue in the same direction. And then for 4 years, everybody bitches and rants and raves about how horrible this Obama did, or how horrible GW did, or potentially how horrible Mitt Romney can do. And God bless us if that happens, if we have a guy in the White House that wears magic underwear and believes Jesus party with the Indians. But that's on another point. So you know what? You don't live in a two-party system. You live in the party system that you can vote your conscience and you can vote for freedom. So having said that, what I'd like to do, do we have Jerri on the line at all? Yeah. What I'd like to do, I'd like to bring Jerri Stevens on the line. Go ahead and bring her through.
Jerri?
Jerri, do we have you? Hi, Jerri. Josh Stanley and Jesse Stanley here. It's a pleasure to have you on our show. And first off, I just want to let everyone know who you are. Jerri is a very courageous activist in, like I said, one of the blackest holes of medical marijuana movement in Oklahoma. She is a courageous soul, a person that's gone through a lot of pain management therapy, and somebody that's working very hard to bring this to light, not through activism, but through education. Jerri, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm 43. I'm 49, disabled. I suffer from chronic pain, involved in a car accident by a drunk driver, and I took care of my parents, who both died from cancer and chemo. It was very raw, but in November, I decided to head off into the Rockies and seek treatment, a different type of treatment, and which I did for 21 days, and came back and was able to raise my hands over my head for the first time in 20 years. So there is healing in the plant.
Wow, Jerri. You know what? I mean, we hear stories from all over the place now, and we're so blessed to get these emails and blogs from people that are outside of Colorado. We tend to think we live in a bubble here, and that everybody else in the United States has the same benefits out there when it comes to cannabis for an alternative treatment, and that's just simply not the case. Can you tell us just a little bit about, and I know this is a lot for you to handle, taking a call like this and talking like this and coming out, but do you feel comfortable telling us about what it's like in Oklahoma to be a cannabis user?
It's very tough, and you've really got to go out of state and seek treatment from legal states, in which that's what I do. I don't participate in it here in Oklahoma because of the fear of being thrown in jail because of our laws being so tough. So I go where it's legal, and I become legal, and that's how I do it.
Jerri, are and bless your heart for that. Are you involved? You've kind of told me we've just gotten to know each other over the last couple of days, only on email, and I thank you for that, because we are humbled by what it is that you're going through in a state where the severity can be life in prison. So are you putting together a group that are educating, are bringing this to the forefront, are writing bills? What is it that you guys are doing to be proactive there in that state?
The Oklahoma Cannabis Activist Group and Facebook, we have come together, and I'm working with Mike, and we are discussing the changes that we could possibly make for our state, and where our people are able to get a safer treatment and get rid of pharmaceutical drugs, which kill your liver, and you go through steroid injections and different things that will cause different effects to your body, actually damaging them. So,
Well, are you? Is there? I want to say there's a congressman or a senator there, a female that has really stepped up and championed this, and really, to my knowledge, the only one. Who is that?
Connie Johnson, Senator Connie Johnson.
Yeah, Connie Johnson. Are you guys in contact with Connie? Are you working with her at all? Is she gaining any ground? Do you get any feedback or any sense that Oklahoma is moving in the right direction?
You would have to speak with Mike McGee on that. He is talked to her and working with her on that terms.
Okay, got it. I tell you what. First off, I just want to thank you for having the courage to come on here. I know it's not easy, especially coming from a state like Oklahoma. We come from Oklahoma. We grew up in Oklahoma. We're here to help you. And one thing, Jerri, you need to remember, we're all in this together, and there's a collective consciousness awakening right now in the United States about medicinal cannabis. And I have to say, not about the bongs and not about the joints and not about the fear of hippies in your public parks giving marijuana to your children. We are making progressions. We're making strides here. And even through our nonprofit, the Realm of Caring here, we're seeing cancer patients that don't have cancer anymore. We're seeing Dravet syndrome children without the high and using the cannabidiol or CBD, a 90% reduction in their seizures and beginning to start to live a normal life. This is what medical marijuana is all about, okay? When we use the word medical, we take it to the highest degree. And I know that you guys do too. And I tell you what, anything that we can do to help, if we can organize patient efforts or trips to get out there where we can sit in front of congressmen and have these people really look at what legal medical marijuana users in Colorado has benefited from, we're here to do that for you. So we're in this fight with you. And we wish you all the blessings and all the success. Thank you so much for being on tonight, Jerri.
Yeah, thank you, Jerri.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, now we're going to go to a break here. Like I said, we have a very, very busy show. We're going to move right along here, and when we get back, we got Matt Cook, the former head of Colorado Department of Revenue, Medical Marijuana Enforcement Division, and then we'll move straight into Science Corner. Keep your blogs coming and keep your phone calls coming. We very much look forward to talking to you. We'll see you in a bit.
Hi, I'm Josh Stanley.
And I'm Jesse Stanley.
Two of the brothers here from National Geographic's American Weed, and we'd like to invite you to come into our dispensaries and dispensary in Colorado Springs. Come in for the most pure organic strain selection in Colorado. It's all hand-grown by the Stanley brothers, especially for our patients. So come in and visit us at our two locations, East Platte and West Colorado. And remember,
always be kind to each other.
Are you a runner? Are you a runner who supports marijuana legalization? Run on Grass is a group of athletes actively seeking to change our marijuana laws. We speak the truth about cannabis, bringing the message through our feet to new ears. Check out runongrass.com to find out more about us, our events, and how to join up or how to sponsor a runner. If you're in the Denver area, please join us for runs or start a group in your area. Running not your thing? Any sport can do it. On grass. Runongrass.com.
Are you a medical marijuana patient or interested in finding out how to become one? Contact Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern. Conveniently located on Hamden and Tamarack in the Whole Foods parking lot behind Proof of the Pudding. Mile High Wellness offers a wide variety of edibles, hashes, and some of Colorado's top strains. Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern. 3525 South Tamarack, Suite 110, on the corner of Hamden and Tamarack. 720-382-8516. Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern.
Hi, Josh Stanley here from National Geographic's American Weed. I'm here with my brothers, and we've just recently put together a foundation in Colorado to allow for cancer patients and other patients of debilitating conditions to be able to get a hold of cannabis-based oil that's just about free of charge. I've just about had it with seeing sick patients suffer needlessly just because they can't afford the proper medication. That's what the Realm of Caring is going to change. Visit therealmofcaring.com. The website will be complete and up on 4/20 of 2012. But until then, please contact any of us Stanley brothers directly through email. You can get us at gratefuljosh@hotmail.com. Now come on, Colorado. We need to take care of each other. Join the Realm. That's realmofcaring.com. Thank you so much.
Let's face it, rules and regulations are complicated, especially in the field of medical marijuana. Let Medical Marijuana 101 help you get through the compliance process. We can also explain to you your employment requirements, your employees, and your business. But our work doesn't stop there. Our experience in cultivation ranges from the design of grow rooms to the diagnosis and resolution of grow problems. Visit us at www.medicalmarijuana101.com or call 303-388-7706. That's 303-388-7706.
Welcome back to American Weed, The Realm Radio. We are joined here with me, Josh Stanley, your host, Jesse Stanley, and we have our very, very special guest here, Matt Cook. Welcome, Matt Cook.
Thanks, Josh. Pleasure to be here.
Well, it's wonderful to have you. We have quite a history, I would say, together in this oft misunderstood industry. And folks, for those of you that don't know, Matt Cook was the original architect, the original designer, the original construct of the Medical Marijuana Enforcement Division, which means, and that is a division of Colorado Department of Revenue, and that means that he was the actual person to help initiate and put the rules together for, I would say, the first, would you say, Matt, the first state to actually have full rules and regulations statewide?
Yeah, Colorado is by far the leader in the nation right now in the regulatory scheme for this industry, no doubt about it.
Right. And Matt, before that, what department did you hold?
Well, I regulated the beverage alcohol industry for 30 years, retired, and was actually coaxed into coming back to work by the governor and the cabinet at that time, the Ritter administration, and put in as what they called the senior director of enforcement. So I regulated 6 different divisions, chaired the Colorado Automobile Theft Prevention Authority for Colorado, had a budget of $153 million, and managed some 350 or so cops. So,
wow. Well, I guess that's a good starting point for regulating medical marijuana. When you got into this, and I have to tell this story. I mean, this tickles me so much. When Matt Cook first got into this, he came in, and we were at the table, actually. Maybe we'll talk about that in a minute when everything was decided, the 70-30 integration and all these things. And the funniest part is Matt came in to address our group, or one of our industry groups. And he came in, suit and tie, everybody's shaking. I mean, literally shaking, going, oh, what do we do? What do we do? This is Matt Cook, this is the head. And one of the things about Matt that was so great is he said he's going to be open. He's going to work with us, because nobody knew the industry. We had to work together. It had to be cohesive to work. And Matt came in, and everybody's scared. And the first thing Matt said, you know what? He said, I'm here to do my job. I don't care who's right, who's wrong, what side you're on. I'm here to enforce the rules. And we said, okay, we get it. All right, so let's work together on this. 1 year, almost to the date later, Matt comes back into our industry group, and he says, you know what? I think there's something to this. Meaning, I think there is medicinal benefit. And I'm starting to see this because Matt had the ability to open himself up to this and not just be your regular state bureaucrat or rule maker, but he listened to the patients, he listened to the business owners, and he came in with an open mind. And that's why Colorado is where it is today. And Matt, I want to thank you for that here on this broadcast. Thank you very much.
No, you're certainly welcome. It was truly a learning experience for me. I've been in law enforcement my whole life. I did drug work, 2 years undercover in the 70s, went through DEA drug school, the whole 9 yards, and so I understood that side of the equation. But as you know, I built the regulatory scheme on really a platform of openness and honesty and communication, and trying to communicate with the industry to understand everybody's concerns. And you're absolutely right. I refused to choose a side. New emerging industries simply wanted validation here in Colorado. Traditional public safety concerns, which they're valid. And so you don't choose a side. You bring the two sides together. You spend 5 months in a room, 2 days a month, 8 hours a day. And as you know, at the beginning of that forum, we had quote-unquote drug dealers on one side, and we had cops on the other, and my staff and I were in the middle. I think I sweat more that first day than I have the whole year. But it was one of the better things I think I've done, because it helped everybody understand each other's issues, and we worked through them. We didn't always agree on everything, but that's okay. We're human, and to disagree can be healthy as well. But I communicated with the industry, did a number of speeches while we were building the regulatory model, while HB 1284 was working its way through the legislature. And I stayed for hours after many of those meetings. People would line up to ask me questions, and I talked to literally thousands of patients, and some of them were very personal stories, very moving stories. And everybody knows somebody who's been afflicted by, debilitating disease of some sort and has turned to cannabis. And it's a personal choice issue. And if it works, and that's what they want to do, then who are we, bureaucrats or otherwise, to say not only no but hell no, it doesn't work that way. And so. Listening to those very personal stories, thousands of them, you have to be a believer in that.
Yeah, it kind of gets out of the placebo range, doesn't it, when you start to hear the testimony and see the stories, and I mean true verifiable figures of white blood counts and cancer going away. I mean, mass consciousness and placebo and things like that are one thing, but clinical results are quite another.
You're absolutely right, and if you followed, the bureaucracy as a whole, I believe the date was March 24th of last year. NCI, National Cancer Institute, a branch of the federal government, actually validated on their own website the medicinal use that cannabis brought to patients, and it also talked about reducing the size of certain tumors. And if you followed that website the following day, the tumor piece of it was surreptitiously removed from that website. And so we all know what happened there. That's politics, and that's how it works. And what really happened is somebody got to him and said, "You realize what you've just done," and remove it.
It took him about 24 hours, I think. Is that right, Matt, to remove that? I don't know who it was that put that on there. We thank them for it eternally, but if you need a place to stay, you can come sleep at my house.
I'm pretty sure they're staying at the bottom of the sea somewhere.
Yeah, possibly so. Matt, let's get into a little bit about the regulatory system in Colorado. What was built? What is it? How do you view the state of affairs today? There's been a lot of changes.
There has, the industry currently is still in the consolidation phase. The moratorium is up the end of this month, as a matter of fact, and absent local ordinances that prohibit additional licenses, that door will again be open for applications for new licenses. But there were some 2,200 applications looking at centers and grows, the quote-unquote vertical integrated model. And I mean, I would tell you right on the front end, it is by no means a perfect system. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that was made, was causing the vertically integrated model. I understand why it was done and the issues that it was supposedly to address. But really, at the 11th hour, had it been done early on in the session, people would have been more prepared for it. But doing it at the 11th hour really forced a lot of marriages between people who knew nothing about each other. And so a number of divorces going on right now. And the industry is going through a pretty good consolidation, probably 20-30% of the people out there, for whatever reason. Some had no business acumen, some had no knowledge or technical expertise in this industry whatsoever. Some got in this industry for the wrong reasons. And they're starting to close their doors.
Yeah, we're really seeing that. What I call it, I affectionately call it the Colorado medical marijuana baptism. And that really is what it is. This is your induction into the world. You had really three kinds of people that got into this business. You had a businessman who thought growing medical marijuana was like growing tomatoes. Then you had your grower who'd been growing forever underground, who knows nothing about business.
That's right.
And then you had, people that were able to put those two things together, but like you said, growing for the wrong reasons. Mm-hmm. We still have those people out there. Let's touch on this for just a little bit. In my opinion, the way that the regulatory model has gone, unfortunately, has aided those people that are in it for the wrong reasons, because there is a certain lack of regulation out there right now. And lack of regulation allows people without tact and without integrity to continue to do things for wrong reasons. Can you elaborate on that just a little bit?
Yeah, I can. The MMED, or the Medical Marijuana Enforcement Division, was built on industry fees. Some $8.2 million was taken in on a weekend in cash, I might add, at a racetrack on the north side of Denver. And that money was supposedly there to build the infrastructure for the division, to fund salaries, to buy the necessary equipment, to create the protocols, all the things that a new business has to go through, all the startup kinds of things. I think where they dropped the ball is when HB 1043 was passed. They asked for an additional year, an extension on the moratorium. Well, I was still the Senior Director of Enforcement at that point, and my question to the budget staff, and there were 7 of them, was, does the MMED have the funding to have the ability to go another year without receiving a penny in additional fees? Can they last? Can they survive? And can they do the things that they need to do? Well, when 7 people look at your budgetary numbers, they do what's called an expenditure analysis. They meet with the program directors every month, once a month, and they forecast things. The state budget runs from the 1st of July through the end of June. And so you know what your revenues, your expenditures look like every month from the beginning of the fiscal year to the end, from day one. And every month you meet with your budget staff, you go through it. I find it hard to believe that nobody saw this train coming and something couldn't be done. But we were given the assurances that, yes, they were financially solvent, there wouldn't be any issues. Now, there's a lot of finger pointing going on right now. Local governments pointing the finger at state governments pointing the fingers at local government. The industry's kind of pointing the fingers at each other, and nobody's really happy as a result of it. And it's a very contentious industry right now. But on the regulatory standpoint, having a lack of resources out there doing the critical compliance and regulatory things, the enforcement things that they need to do, has really just fueled the fire.
Okay, Matt, we're having some technical difficulties here, and I think that may be because we have an increased number of viewers, and that's always a good thing. But a lot of people have blogged in, Jesse, haven't they, and asked, they're wondering what you're doing. What are you doing now? You left this quagmire. You did a great job, and you know what? You earned everyone's respect, and we thank you for that. What are you doing now?
Well, let me just on the front end tell you, I hated to leave when I did, but I had 36 years in government work, and when you get that many years in, you actually have to pay the government to continue to work. And so I got about a $1,200 raise when I left just for leaving. And so I'm not the smartest guy on the block, but I know better than to keep working to, spend $1,200 a month. A lot of golf for $1,200.
That's a lot of green fees.
I've actually started a consulting business, and I've been actually a year this month already, if you can believe it.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm doing regulatory consulting on a national basis. I own Cook Consulting, LLC, and I have been very busy on a national level dealing with cannabis regulation in a number of states. Primarily California, which is a mess, and they actually look up to what's going on in Colorado, believe it or not.
Wow,
and
somebody does.
Now, I will say, as you probably know, California is big enough to be 3 states, and there are really 3 camps. There are those who want no regulation, there are those who want reasonable regulations, and there are growers who want to do nothing but grow. And so Tom Amiano, Assemblyman, has a bill out currently. Surprisingly, it got through one side of the House. It's going to the other now, but it's not favored by law enforcement. And what's kind of unique about this, I was in Sacramento about a month ago and toured a few collectives out there, and I actually took a chief of police to a grow. Well, grows are illegal in California, and typically, when somebody gets exposed to this, they're like a kid in a candy store, and they're asking, a number of different questions. And I would tell you right on the front end, I know enough about this really to make me dangerous on the growing side. I'm by no means an expert. Don't proclaim to be an expert in that arena. I'm a regulator, and I understand how to make processes work from a regulatory standpoint for the good of everyone. But I asked a few questions, simple things. I saw some bags of trash and plants laying in the corner, and I asked the owner if that was trash, and he said, "Yeah, absolutely." I said, "What do you do with it?" And he looked at me like I was crazy. "Well, we throw it in the trash." I said, "You throw the plants in the trash?" In the trash? He says, "Yeah, absolutely." And you could see the wheels turning, and afterwards he got real nervous, and so I kind of backed off. And when it was all said and done, I said, "Look, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but why'd you get so nervous?" He goes, "I thought I was talking to the godfather of grows." And I just got real nervous, and I had to laugh. But it was a real education for the chief. I've started a business in California. Green Shield International is the name of it. It builds security, safety protocols, regulatory protocols for the cannabis industry. And I'm.
Do you have a website on that?
Yeah, I do not yet, but it's coming.
Okay.
I actually doing something very similar to what we're done in Colorado, trying to raise the level of regulatory compliance with a number of places. The method to my madness is I'm doing this. I've built this around the Capitol, so that the legislators have the ability to go out and see it, using off-duty law enforcement officers.
That's brilliant.
For security. It helps break down the cultural bans, and it educates them. They really get to see what this industry is all about, and to get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly with everything. Any business has it. And so that's been very successful. We're moving forward. There is a new entity called the California Cannabis Business League. I had the ability to speak before them. I'm doing some work with them. And so pretty excited about what's going on in California. I believe they want regulatory reform there. If you've read their statute, 2 sentences, I don't think we could ever agree. 5 people read it, they're going to get 5 different opinions about it. It's that gray. Camilla Harris, the AG, has come out with a memorandum, things that she wants to see in the regulation, and they're all real basic things unique to Colorado, one of which is they need to validate grows. So my proposal to them is to create a 3-tier system, unlike Colorado's vertically integrated system.
Very, very, very good idea. Elaborate, please.
Well, it would be a retailer, a wholesaler, and a manufacturer. And the manufacturer would be your growers. They would be authorized to sell their commodities to a wholesaler, who would be the only one able to transport it throughout the state. And then, of course, the collectives would be the retailers who could provide necessary medicine to its patients. And you could not have a financial interest in more than one of those tiers, but it allows those that have the growing expertise to utilize their expertise. It allows those who have the retailing expertise to engage in that side of things, and so on. The wholesaler in any industry like this truly is a middleman.
Right.
And there's a reason for the middleman, and honestly, it's a third set of books and records.
There's a reason for the middleman in any commodity.
Yes, there
I
is.
don't care what it is, and that's what they skipped in Colorado. And you and I and Dan Hartman and all of the sponsors of the original bill were at the table with Dr. Shackelford when the vertical integration was put forward. And I looked at Senator Romer at the time. He was a friend of mine, so I can say this. And I said, Chris, 100% vertical integration, which was what he was proposing. I said, you're out of your mind. That's like asking McDonald's to slaughter their own cattle overnight. And it turned out to be that hard. You leave out that middleman, you really strangle a system. You know what, folks? We've run out of time here, but I want to thank Matt Cook. And I tell you what, Matt, would you give the name of your company and your consulting service again, please?
Sure. It's Cook Consulting, LLC. You can get me at it's mattdcook.com, cookconsulting.com. You can reach me by email at cook.consulting@comcast.net or mattcookco@gmail.com. And yeah, if I can help you, I'm happy to do so.
Absolutely. Matt, you've helped us, the Stanley Brothers. We can't thank you enough. I know many, many other people that have used your help and your guidance, your wisdom, and we have to thank you from the bottom of our heart for being open from the start. Our friendship means a lot to us, the brothers, between you and I. So thank you very much. And thank you for coming on. I hope we can have you on again.
I would love to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks so much for coming in. And Joel wanted me to tell you thank you, and he sends a hug.
Yeah. We're going to take a short break, guys. We're going to be back with Science Corner.
California's Attorney General has determined that the Repeal Cannabis Prohibition Act will save hundreds of millions of dollars from our overburdened justice system while creating hundreds of millions in new tax revenues from new sustainable jobs and industries that are friendly to our environment. But we can't do it without your help. We are seeking your donations to get on the ballot. Please go to repealcannabisprohibition.org to learn more about how you can help. It's time to end the war on cannabis and hemp in California. It's time to end the madness. Paid for by Sensible Californians Incorporated.
Hi, Josh Stanley here from National Geographic's American Weed. I'm here with my brothers, and we've just recently put together a foundation in Colorado to allow for cancer patients and other patients of debilitating conditions to be able to get a hold of cannabis-based oil that's just about free of charge. I've just about had it with seeing sick patients suffer needlessly just because they can't afford the proper medication. That's what the Realm of Caring is going to change. Visit therealmofcaring.com. The website will be complete and up on 4/20 of 2012. But until then, please contact any of us Stanley brothers directly through email. You can get us at gratefuljosh@hotmail.com. Now come on, Colorado. We need to take care of each other. Join the Realm. That's realmofcaring.com. Thank you so much.
Are you a runner? Are you a runner who supports marijuana legalization? Run on Grass is a group of athletes actively seeking to change our marijuana laws. We speak the truth about cannabis, bringing the message through our feet to new ears. Check out runongrass.com to find out more about us, our events, and how to join up or how to sponsor a runner. If you're in the Denver area, please join us for runs or start a group in your area. Running not your thing? Any sport can do it on grass. Runongrass.com.
Hi, I'm Josh Stanley.
And I'm Jesse Stanley.
Two of the brothers here from National Geographic's American Weed, and we'd like to invite you to come into our dispensaries in Colorado Springs. Come in for the most pure organic strain selection in Colorado. It's all hand-grown by the Stanley brothers, especially for our patients. So come in and visit us at our two locations, East Platte and West Colorado. And remember,
Always be kind to each other.
Welcome back, everybody. We're back, American Weed, the Realm Radio, and we want to thank Matt Cook. What a wonderful interview. We apologize to everybody for the technical difficulties. We had so many viewers come on at once, which is such a blessing. We thank you guys so much. We're getting the problem fixed. The system crashed because there were so many people tuning in. But we're going to move rapidly on here. We're going to move on to Science Corner. And luckily enough, I took all of the questions here, and I've given all the questions to the amazing scientists that we have on the show tonight. We have Steve Baugh, we have Chris Stubbs, we have the wonderful, the amazing Jennifer Murray. And you guys had sent in such wonderful questions to us on this new CBD group. And Rebecca Brown, I want to thank you again for putting this group together. Some of your questions were amazing. Some of them were bewildering. And we're going to get down to each one of them. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the science over to the nerds at the nerdery. and I'm going to exit here so that I don't pollute anything. So I'm going to send my chair over to Jennifer, and I'm going to let you guys get started, okay?
Okay, this is Chris Stubbs here. Steve, you want to say howdy?
Hello.
So we've got a few questions here from the CBD group, which touch on a lot of things. First one is about when we're talking about giving our kids high CBD meds. Is ratio more important, or is the total number of milligrams of CBD? We just got some more meds, and it was lower ratio than before, but our guy tried to explain that it's the total cannabidiol milligrams that's important. It has a little more THC than our other stuff. Not sure what I am buying and what they are selling, which is a very common issue that we hear a lot. But the bottom line here is it takes some work, to find what works best in each given situation. It's a really complicated biochemistry that goes on in the plant, and it's very complicated biochemistry in your body. So there is always a trial and error there, and that's just the reality of it. Cannabidiol and delta-9 THC compete for the same receptor, CBD being non-psychoactive, and so there are, if you have a 1-to-1 ratio, it's definitely less psychoactive than, say, a 1-to-30 ratio of CBD to THC. If you take that and flip it the other way around and have CBD at 30-to-1 delta-9, there is very little psychoactivity, but what's physiologically important there is that CBD alone, and this touches on another question, does CBD have to have THC present to be effective? Cannabidiol has been shown to be an antioxidant, a neuroprotectant. It's got physiological activity in a lot of different cases in the mammalian body, in the human body specifically, alone. And how that works, again, depends on everyone's biochemistry and their metabolism. But I hope that helps a little bit. Steve, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I guess this is a real common problem in the industry, and that is getting reproducible medication. It's kind of hit or miss, and sometimes you go back and get the same product and you don't get the same effect. And like Chris said, you have to determine for yourself what the right ratio is. Maybe you have a combination of symptoms, and so you're looking for a combination of different relief. And what's important in my mind is that when you do find that product, that it stays the same.
Exactly.
Yes.
And the labs that are testing this out there, some have very stringent guidelines like we do. Others don't calibrate their pipettes and scales and have error coming right off the bat. And so it's a real challenge for some of you out there that aren't in our state and have access to that level.
Also, I'd just like to back up a little bit because sometimes Chris is way up there. So just to let you know, cannabidiol is CBD.
Yeah.
For those of you out there.
And we wanted to make the point tonight to say CBD alone, not CBDs. There are multiple molecules in a CBD solution, obviously, but it's just cannabidiol, just like THC is THC. And not THCs.
Exactly.
And that's really why labeling is so important. And the testing that Cann Labs do leads to accurate labeling, but I think what's also important is that the consumer puts some pressure on the manufacturer and the person providing the medication to get a standardized product. My industry, I come from the dietary supplements industry, and it's very similar to this. And we started out with plants, and the plants were too variable. And it depended on the growing season or where it came from or who. And reproducibility from harvest to harvest was very difficult to attain. So my industry ended up with extracts. And the extracts can be blended to be very accurate. So hopefully that's what I'll bring to the table here, and we'll create these standardized products with testing behind them that will allow the consumer to get reproducible medication every time.
Right. So it's just a matter of trying different ratios and finding out basically what's best for you is what it comes down to.
And I have heard various experiences where you challenge the endocannabinoid system with a different ratio than you've been on for some amount of time that had been working. And there are physiological reasons behind that. There's what's called receptor mediation, where the receptors are down-regulated as they're challenged constantly. And so if you challenge them in a different way or take a break from that, they can actually regrow in a sense and be upregulated so that you're sensitive again. And that's another challenge in this complicated matrix. What works for you for a long time may need to be switched up here and there. And that's one of the mysteries of it. That's why physicians have had a hard time with cannabis.
Chris, going on with that, with the CBD and mixing it up with for your receptors, would you say that you could drop down? Say somebody is taking a high CBD, could they drop down to mix it up, or would they have to increase the CBDs?
That's essentially what I'm suggesting. I mean, I've heard a lot of anecdotal evidence where you're at a really high CBD to THC ratio, and that works for a really long time, and then you challenge that, it stops working, so that you make a change and either bring the ratio of THC up or back off CBD to achieve the same ratio difference and see an effect physiologically. But it may be due to that, it may not be. It's not a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial of a bunch of people. It's usually one or two people, and
without proper data to
well, I can speak from experience. Just in some of the Jerri cases out there, what we've seen is that we've had to do that.
Right.
So for the listeners out there, the Jerri parents, that's really important. And in fact, so if you can rewind back and listen to that again, it's very good knowledge. Thanks, Chris.
And that's what's important about the group we have going, and about discussing this as responsible parents out there. It would be a mystery if it weren't coming out and we weren't excited about it.
How about the next question?
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's a great segue into the next question I'm interested in, and that is, Josh had talked about single compound pharma meds versus multiple compounds, and that's, again, something I'm very interested in. I call it complex drug discovery. Typically what pharma does is they take a plant and that has activity historically, and then they will dissect it chemically with different extractions, and they'll chase down the compound that they think is active.
Very reductionist, yeah.
Very reductionist, and then they'll synthesize it so that they an analog so they can patent it, and they end up with a single compound drug. I prefer to take a step back and start working with plants again, which gives us this perfect opportunity we've been afforded here with this plant. In this case, the plant has been approved for these ailments, not a single drug.
Exactly.
And
Which
so
is the
this-
beauty, because they all work together, don't they? All the cannabinoids. I mean, it's
I think they do, and I'm working on a statistical model to try and correlate that. But in the meantime, we just have to find out that the CBDs are effective for duvets, and we have to.
You said
oh,
CBDs.
I did
Punch
say
'em.
plural. Yeah, and that may turn out that that's the case after all.
Yeah, we've talked about an entourage effect.
Yeah.
Of multiple different.
So I don't use single molecule words, and there are more than one CBD. So a molecule. So yeah, it's probably correct in some way. But in reality, I think the important thing is to start working with these medicines much like a shaman would, or a traditional doctor. I mean, they don't have double-blind placebo-controlled trials. They worked off of, does this work for you?
Right.
And they created personalized medicines. And I think that's really what we're talking about here, is trying to experiment with these different ratios. And my job, I feel, is to bring the standardization to the industry so that once people do this experimentation, and as Chris said, maybe you have to bounce back and forth. Maybe you pick 3 medications and you have one as your primary, and then you use the other 2 to regenerate your receptors.
There's a combination of both of these things out there. GW has, formulated a 1-to-1 CBD.
Sativex.
THC, Sativex, the spray,
Sativex.
For that reason, to not be completely reductionist, but also to not make it psychoactive, and even they don't understand fully what the ramifications of cannabidiol in that medication are versus Delta-9, and that's a problem that the FDA sees as well. But knowing that, and knowing the science of what we can do, and what the plant has, there's a lot of ways you can go with that, and the FDA is open to those discussions. Nobody's been able to do it because of the DEA, and that's a whole nother discussion, but the technology exists to blend these. It's been done. They've gone back to the plants to grow and activate those genes within the plant instead of blending extracts, which is even more interesting. So
well, and it just seems like THC gets such a bad rap, sort of, and I just think there's a place for it as well. Some people can't eat. It's the appetite, stimulator, and a lot of times people are feeling blue, they don't feel good, and it makes a lot of people feel better. So let's not forget that it's not the black sheep. I feel bad for it. No, I'm kidding.
With respect for the very old and the very young, or the very sensitive, there's the ability for your body to tolerate. So if you have start with a low dose and build up, what may be a psychoactive ratio within a week could not be. And so it's, again, that constant challenge to the system and finding what works.
Yeah, what Chris just said, basically, folks, is those that are out there that are on the oil, we have seen people that have 10 milligrams, and in a week they're taking 140 milligrams.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And going up more and more and more. So it's good to push it, take as much as you can. Thanks for that, Chris.
Yeah, well, and the cool thing I think about that is I look at the industry today and the dosing as very analgesic, and we've spoken about this before. And as you build that tolerance and ingest more oil, I think that's where the curative side may lie. Yeah. And I don't think we're going to get there until we have highly refined oils that are well profiled and a dosing structure worked out. It's being done out there, but Big Pharma's not going to look at it, or the government's not going to look at it until there is some more science behind it. But it exists, and it's working for people, and
that's what we're doing at the Realm.
Can really be
that's right.
An effective thing. So
And it's really a unique opportunity because the FDA regulates all drug use in this country, and we have this window of opportunity to operate outside of their jurisdiction. And I must give them a little prop because they really have approved medical marijuana protocol in the past.
Really?
It's blocked by the DEA and the NIDA. In fact, just recently they approved a clinical trial protocol for post-traumatic stress disorder that was blocked by the DEA and the NIDA.
Wild Crackers Group.
And I tell you, it's the difference between a scientist that's curious, that wants to explore something, and an enforcer that really doesn't care. They see black and white. And so until we can resolve that conflict of interest, I've wanted to say that for a long time. Once we can resolve this conflict of interest, we can get these protocols approved, and the DEA will find they have jobs forever handling the alternative uses, the diversion of medical marijuana. So there's room here for everything.
Just like Oxycontin and all those other drugs that people are cutting up and putting in their arms.
So they don't have to bank it all on preventing medical marijuana. They can actually pick up their career dealing with diversion. So when we all come up with that solution, hopefully we can move forward.
Should we move on to a couple additional questions here real quick? One is, does hemp seed oil found in stores work in the same way as CBD? Since we're not yet in a legal state, I was planning on running up to Whole Foods and trying this on my girl. Does anybody use it? Has it helped with seizures? And that's a really interesting question. It's not the same in a lot of ways. The cannabinoid content and the terpene content are a lot higher in
Can you explain what a terpene is, Chris?
A terpene is what you smell on cannabis.
Thank you.
And terpenes and flavonoids are taste and smell, which creates flavor in the human palate. And so both are really important in cannabis because it's a smelly, good tasting plant. And so hemp, as you would call it, it tastes and smells a lot more like hay, and it's devoid of all of that, whereas medical cannabis has been bred to have a lot of that distinct aroma and terpenoid content. So those levels are a lot higher. The cannabinoid contents are a lot higher. So they've been, both strains a long time ago have been bred for their purposes. One is fiber type, one is drug type, and that's how it's classically described in the literature.
Hemp versus cannabis.
Yes, and it's all cannabis, which is, you know, I have this mandate to talk about cannabis, and then when you get to the hemp discussion, you're like, well, I have to say cannabis and hemp, I don't know. So I apologize for that, but the interesting thing about hemp oil is it's hemp in general and hemp extracts have been shown to, you know, help a lot with inflammation and protection. But if it works in this same way, I have no idea. I've not seen it used this way for seizures, so I'm speculating at the moment. But it might help a little bit. But if it's the cannabinoids at the high levels that we're looking for that actually make the difference, and the percentages of those in hemp products is purposefully tested to be very low, so that it's not a drug type product, and that's how the FDA and USDA and Border Patrol and everybody frame hemp. So its levels of these molecules are a lot lower, and it's really the oil, the fatty acids in hemp oil that you're looking to the benefit for. I hope that answers the question. What else do we have here? Next one, without giving away any secrets, can you explain how Realm oil is different from Phoenix Tears, which is Rick Simpson's oil? And that again touches on the dosing. He has a dosing regimen that he's been using for a long time, too.
Why don't we touch real quick on the differences between oils and Phoenix Tears and how people can take the same oil and just call it something different. So why don't you tell us what Phoenix Tears is first, and then we can talk about the Stanley oil. It's just a
Phoenix Tears is
solvent,
the name,
right?
Is Rick Simpson's name for hemp oil, and he calls all cannabis hemp.
Okay.
And so it's very confusing because it's not hemp. It's made from medical cannabis quality drug type marijuana, if you want to go all the way
extracted.
down
the cannabinoids are just extracted with a different solvent.
His method started with naphtha, and went through a number of different extraction processes for safety concerns. And now what's recommended is using grain alcohol, which is food safe. But they're all solvent extractions. And whether you're using grain alcohol or butane or hexane, the assumption is you pull the cannabinoids with those solvents, evaporate them off, and you're left with an oil. And the darker it is, the more chlorophylls you have, the lighter it is, the less. Some of them pull terpenoids and flavonoids better than others. The temperatures and pressures, it has gotten insane over the last 2.5, 3 years, seeing all the extraction equipment and processes out there. It's ridiculous now because we didn't see any of this back then. It was only very close-knit circles of people in the literature that knew what was up.
Right.
So Phoenix Tears is just his specific name, and there were people out a couple of years ago using that name without his permission, creating foundations in his name, etc. And the whole thing got really convoluted, but that's really the name for his process, which started very simple, and it still is. He evaporates solvent in a rice cooker.
Naphtha, which is nasty.
And yeah, there's a lot of nasty solvents being used, and there's no residual solvent testing. We don't
which is
do
scary.
It even right now. We've been asked to, and I can identify the presence or absence, but we're not equipped to give that a number right now. And so it's really all on your honor, and that's...
So then let's talk about the difference between that and Stanley oil.
And that's...
Realm oil carrying. I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine.
Realm oil?
Realm oil is completely different. Not completely different in that we do use the same product. Ours just, we hope, is better. But that is also a good place to probably end the show because we have run over. Realm oil will actually be discussed by Joel, who actually makes it. I am just the person that gets it out. I do know a few things about it, but rather than misinform our listeners and viewers and the people out there, I would rather have Joel answer that question. We do need to wrap up, unfortunately, because we have gone over. We do have a lot more questions to answer, but of course we'll have Science Corner next week and we can get to those. So I'd just like to thank everybody for coming on, for Science Corner, Matt Cook, Jerri for calling in, all of our listeners out there that crashed the system. Thank you for that. Gives us something to work on, and we will be working on it for next week. We would like to give a shout out to Elisa, who beat the courts today.
Yes.
Verdict not guilty. Very exciting news for Colorado Springs, and all the people that helped. Audrey, Mark, many of you out there that have helped organize the rallies to get people out. We thank you for that. Josh, do you have anything else to say?
I do. Elisa, first off, it's great to be free, sweetheart, and we love you so much, and we're so excited about that verdict.
Absolutely.
Next week, guys, on our show, I'm sorry about the crash tonight. There were way too many viewers, and we hope to have double as many next week. We'll have the problem fixed. But, guys, first off and foremost, I want to thank you as the listeners. I want to thank our guests tonight, as always, Science Corner, Steve Baugh, Chris Stubbs, Jennifer Murray. And then, above and all, I want to thank our patients. We're so honored to be a part of your lives and to be able to provide this oil to you. I want to thank Dr. Shackelford. Next week, we have a great show coming up. We've got Mason DeVert coming in to talk about the legalization movement, the goods, the bads, the uglies, and how that looks and where he thinks he's standing with that in Colorado. So we're very excited to have a good show next week. And, folks, remember, always, always, always take care of each other. Good night.
She would never say where she came from.